Imagine crossing a dry landscape thousands of years ago with no map, no road signs, no bottle of water, and no phone telling you where the nearest spring is. The sun is overhead. Your mouth is dry. Somewhere ahead there is water, but you cannot see it. So how do you find something that might be hidden underground, trapped in rock, collected after rain, or sitting beyond the next ridge? For ancient humans, this was not a curiosity, it was survival. They did not need to see the water first. They learned to predict where it should be. And once you understand how, a landscape that looks empty starts to look like a map. Start with the obvious answer, find a river. Except humans did not always have a river in front of them. They crossed dry plains, rocky country, forests, and landscapes where rain could transform a place for a few days and then disappear. A stream might flow after a storm and become a dry channel weeks later. A shallow pool could fill inside rock and evaporate. A spring could survive through a dry season, while everything around it looked dead. So the real question was never simply, where is the water? It was, where is water likely to be? That changes everything. Water leaves important clues. The first clue is the shape of the ground. Water follows gravity. It runs downhill. It gathers in low places. It follows channels. It collects in natural basins. So a valley is not just a valley. A depression is not just a dip in the ground. And a dry riverbed is not necessarily useless. It is evidence of what water has done before. That matters because the goal is not always to find water lying on the surface. Sometimes the goal is to find the place where water is most likely to appear next. Imagine two people standing on the same dry plain. One sees dust and stones. The other notices the land slopes toward a narrow valley. Rain would naturally move toward that low point. Now the empty landscape has become a prediction, but terrain is not enough. What if the valley is dry? Now look for life. Plants need water. Animals need water. So living things can provide another set of clues. A greener patch in a dry region may be worth investigating. A line of animal tracks may reveal a route toward a resource. Repeated bird activity might point to water nearby, but none of these signs is a magic detector. An animal may be moving toward food. A plant may be growing because of soil or shade. A bird may simply be passing through. Follow the wrong clue, and you have just spent precious energy becoming more dehydrated. So ancient water finding was not about discovering one perfect signal. It was about combining imperfect signals: landform, plants, animals, recent rain, season, and memory. Each clue makes a prediction slightly stronger. The more experience a person had with the same landscape, the better those predictions became. Imagine returning to a valley you visited months earlier. You remember the lowest section held water after heavy rain. You remember a particular rock beside the route. You also remember another place that looked promising but was always dry. That memory can be worth more than a random guess. Now you are searching a few places for specific reasons. And humans had another advantage. They could teach each other. A useful discovery did not have to disappear with its maker. An adult could show a child the route. A group could remember landmarks. People could preserve knowledge of springs and seasonal streams. Research on hunter-gatherer movement shows how strongly access to water can shape where groups travel and camp, especially in dry environments. Water is heavy and difficult to carry, so reliable sources can strongly constrain movement. That creates a powerful shift. A person who finds water solves one problem. A group that remembers water solves a larger one. Now they can plan. Instead of asking, "Where can we drink?" they can ask, "Which water source comes next?" That is the difference between searching and navigating. But there is a hidden complication. A place can contain water without containing water today. A storm can fill a rock basin. Days later, it may still hold water. Weeks later, it may be empty. A river can shrink into isolated pools. A spring can weaken during drought. So humans had to learn something beyond geography. They had to learn timing. When does the rain arrive? When does the river rise? When do particular plants appear? When do animals move toward water? When does a seasonal pool disappear? The landscape was not fixed. It was a changing system. A successful traveler needed to understand both place and time. The same valley could mean something different in wet and dry seasons. And that makes the knowledge far more sophisticated than simply knowing where rivers are. It becomes a kind of calendar written across the land. But humans eventually pushed this even further. They learned that water does not always have to remain on the surface. It can exist below it. Archaeologists have found prehistoric wells dating back thousands of years, including Neolithic wells in regions such as Cyprus and the Near East. Those structures show that people were deliberately accessing groundwater rather than relying only on visible surface water. Think about the mental leap. You are standing on dry ground. There is no stream, there is no pool, and yet you decide to dig. That only makes sense if you understand that water can move underground and become trapped beneath the surface. A well is therefore more than a hole. It is a prediction made physical. You're saying there should be water here, and then you test the idea. That changes everything. Humans are no longer only following water. They are anticipating it. And once water becomes predictable, movement can change. A group that knows reliable sources can travel with greater confidence. A group that can store water can stay longer. A group that can reach groundwater can depend less on temporary pools. Eventually, people can return to the same places and organize around dependable water. Archaeological research repeatedly shows that water availability was closely connected to human occupation, including in regions that are dry today. In the ancient Turkana Basin, for example, evidence shows that freshwater resources were present during several periods when early hominins lived there. So, a question that begins with survival eventually becomes a question about settlement. Where can we drink? Becomes, where can we stay? And eventually, where can we build? But there is an even deeper lesson here. Ancient humans were not living in a world without information. They were living in a world where information was harder to read. The clues were not displayed on a screen. They were written into the environment. The slope of the ground, the path of an old stream, the plants growing in an unexpected place, the tracks left by animals, the timing of rain, the memory of a waterhole, the location of a spring, and the results of a previous journey. Modern humans use satellites, weather forecasts, maps, and GPS to turn these kinds of patterns into instant information. Ancient humans had to build those maps inside their memories, and every successful journey could improve the next one. A failed search taught you where not to look. A reliable pool taught you where to return. A seasonal change taught you when to travel. A useful landmark taught you how to get there. Over generations, countless small observations could become a sophisticated system of environmental knowledge. So how did ancient humans find water? Not because they possessed a mysterious sixth sense. Not because every animal led them to a hidden spring. And not because every green plant meant drinking water was nearby. They learned to combine clues, they read the land, they watched living things, they remembered seasons, they learned routes. They passed knowledge to the next generation, and eventually they learned to reach water hidden underground. The most important advantage was not simply knowing where water was, it was knowing where water was likely to be before they could see it. A modern traveler can ask a phone. An ancient traveler had to ask the landscape, and the landscape answered through patterns. A valley, a dry channel, a patch of vegetation, a trail of animals, a change in season, a remembered landmark. To us, a dry landscape can look empty. To someone who knows how to read it, the same landscape can reveal where to walk, stop, and dig. Ancient humans did not survive because the land was easy to understand. They survived because they became very good at understanding it. They turned observation into memory, memory into knowledge, and knowledge into survival. The water was always hidden. The clues were not.